I really like Led Zeppelin.
It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And welcome to the Superhero Slate swinging review of Spider-Man Far From Home.
Ooh, Chris ad-libbing up top. That's right, Spider-Man Far From Home, the movie that, unbeknownst to me, actually came out on Tuesday at midnight. I was very confused when it came to buying my tickets. Even though we talk about this stuff on the news episode of our show every single week. I was like, Chris told me over and over again this movie is coming out on Tuesday, but I kept thinking Tuesday night at midnight as in like
Wednesday.
Technically Wednesday. So when I finally got around to buying my tickets, I had to settle for like a Wednesday showing, which actually ended up being kind of nice because it's a very strange holiday week. Some people only get the 4th of July off. Some people don't get that day off here in the States. Some people can swing the whole week off. People go on vacation. So it's a very weird fluctuation at the movie theaters. You know, sometimes you might get people just coming in on the weekend. So we went on a Wednesday at like 7 p.m. and 7 p.m. is a difficult time to make it to locations out here in LA. So our theater was actually a little sparse compared to how it usually was, but it was kind of nice. It was a chill vibe. Showed up to the theater. It was actually pretty empty and until people started to roll in. So we had a pretty good time, a good audience. We all just had a whole lot of fun. The dudes next to me were getting really into the film at some parts, so it was getting pretty fun. But obviously, right off the bat, we're not going to spoil anything.
Nope.
There'll be time codes in our show notes, and we'll do a big audio warning, which is probably going to be me and Chris like screaming into the microphone saying we're about to spoil stuff.
That's our spoiler sound.
But we ain't about to do that at the top of the show.
No. I've got to go. I've actually seen Spider-Man Far From Home twice by the time we've recorded this, Mike. I've got to go 2 times.
I didn't know it was Easter. You must be out there on the Easter egg hunt, Chris.
Or I'm on Eastern Standard Time. Is that the joke? Is that what we're going for?
Sure.
So I actually got to go, Monday night, technically Tuesday morning at midnight. I had that luxury of getting to experience that.
Relive your youth at a midnight showing?
Exactly. And the hardest part's usually between 9 and 12. I found out. Like, I got bored. I'm like, what do you do between 9 and 12 to keep yourself entertained?
Yeah, that's true, because usually, depending on how the night is, you might just be trying to, like, ease yourself into bed. But, yeah, like, I haven't had to plan for anything at midnight since I was in college.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, how do we do this? So we left we didn't need to. We left about an hour early to go to the movie theater. So, like, if we're in the theater, we'll be okay. And then I went, and there was, like, no line at all, and there was hardly anyone waiting outside. I'm like, what's going on? Most people to show up later, but I got the Spider-Man popcorn everyone told me not to get for that. And let me tell you, it's just colored kettle corn. It's very expensive colored kettle corn. It's like $10 for this little carton of stuff.
Yikes.
And it's red and it's blue, and it's not powdery colored. It's like a hard-coated shell. But if you eat enough of those hard-coated shells, it starts to get on your skin kind of like it looks like little glass particles, kind of like maybe glitter, more so glitter. But like, it didn't stain my fingers as much as that other review said it did. Like, I was like, oh, there's some stuff. I'll just rinse it off, and it was fine.
You can always count on the Superhero Slate to review any sort of silly, gimmicky food for you. So Chris is out there sacrificing his fingers.
I'm keeping my eyes out. I also I don't know if you've been to a Coke Freestyle machine lately or not.
Ooh, what's going on there?
They have these new summer flavors. They've updated the software. The interface is better, and they have summer flavors which are pre-mixed drinks together. So
you're speaking my language. I love those machines.
It had a peach cobbler flavored drink, which is 60% Coke vanilla, 40% Sprite with peach flavor in it.
Whoa.
And you just push it and it pours it all together into your cup. It's fantastic. How
does it compare against that Mountain Dew peach that's at KFC?
Oh, that's tough. The Mountain Dew peach, I think, if this makes any sense, it's a lighter drink to drink. It doesn't feel as heavy as like that dark Coke does, I guess. because Coke will weigh on you a little bit.
That caramel coloring weighing you down.
Yeah, the color of Coca-Cola is making it heavier for me for some reason. But I mean, it's pretty good. It's up there. If you get a chance to try that at any freestyle machine that has it, it's on the main page. It's fantastic. There's my drink review for that. And then the second time I actually got to go on the 4th of July day, and my first one IMAX full theater. Second one, barely anybody in there on the 4th of July at like 5 o'clock. We went 5 o'clock, prime grilling time, just to avoid that heat that's going on.
And also that awkward time where you gotta be really careful with the timing of your film, because depending on when the sun sets in your region, you might be starting to miss the fireworks.
Yes, and we got out 7:30, enough to have dinner and watch people set off fireworks all night long here in the Midwest. So 2 times, both good times. It was a good time going to Europe with Spider-Man and his pals.
Well, Chris, it seems like you're starting to show your hand, so lay it on me spoiler free. What did you think of this movie?
It was awful. I saw it awful. I saw it twice. Like I tell people. No, it's a really good, I think this is a really good Spider-Man movie. It's a really good follow-up to both Homecoming and Endgame. Endgame's like we talked about kind of last year with Ant-Man. Endgame and Infinity War, heavy films, man. Those will weigh on you. They need something to build you out of that gut and that depression from those movies. And this was a really good movie. Now, if people are hoping to get a nice, clean wrap-up for 12 years of movies, you're not going to get that in Spider-Man. I will tell you that right now. Do not go in hoping that you're going to get answers to everything you have questions for. But I will tell you, Spider-Man and Mysterio and his crew of characters on their trip in Europe is a very fun movie. I felt like I was there with them on this trip. It took me back to my teenage years. I'm like, I can relate to Peter Parker in these situations, and it's just a good time. I think it's a really good summer movie, and even better Spider-Man movie. Mike, how about yourself?
Yeah, this movie is going to be an easy recommend, but also difficult to talk about it. Because there's definitely 2 parts to this movie, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll just say this was a really inventive, fun time. Give huge props to the screenwriter, Chris McKenna, and I was looking up his credits because the only thing I remembered him doing was the previous Spider-Man movie, Homecoming, and he's written a lot of things that we liked. You know, the most recent Jumanji movie, which we thought was actually a pleasant time since it's a movie we didn't really think we wanted. He wrote Ant-Man and the Wasp. He's wrote a bunch of episodes of Community, which is a show I absolutely love, and American Dad, which is a show that I like. So I thought he really nailed it here with the story. I love the emotional connection between Peter and his long-lost mentor, Iron Man. And man, what a fascinating send-up of where Endgame left us off. Just a very creative and clever way to pick up these loose ends, and we'll talk about that more in spoilers. But I had a really fun time, but it was a very confusing time, which I can't really speak on much more. And I confirmed with my wife, we both had very similar feelings with this movie until we kind of hit that point in the film. So all I can say, this is an easy recommend. I can only really echo what you're saying right now. It's a great sequel to Homecoming, a great sequel to Endgame, and I'm really looking forward to definitely the next Spider-Man film. I mean, we all knew that there was going to be more of these, of course. There's no question there, but the film definitely ends on a very interesting note, if you will. So there's a whole lot to talk about here, and I feel like I don't want to slip the tongue anymore.
Mike is towing the line here really carefully. I also have to give a lot of props to the music in this movie. I actually found myself listening to it more the second time around.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because there was a 4:45 screening of this movie going on next door while we were waiting for our theater to be cleaned, and so I was just out there sitting, eating some popcorn, and I could start to hear the music come through the walls, and I was like, man, this sounds like we're in for a really, really fun time here, because I could just like kind of hear the third act coming through the wall. So yeah, I could agree with you there. Yeah,
and that's not something you normally talk about in a Marvel movie, but there are hints of stuff from the first Spider-Man movie. There are new tones for this one, and then some throwbacks to his time in the Avengers movies, the 2 he was in. So really, really enjoyed the music, something I don't normally say. But I mean, it's no surprise, Mike, that there were you heard the people having a good time watching this, because this is the #1 Tuesday opening. We didn't talk about the box office yet, but like before we get into spoilers, I just want to drop this on people. Mike did the research. He found out that this was the number one Tuesday opening of all time. And let me tell you, it had a run for its money. Some of the best movies come out on Tuesday, including other Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
And what else, Mike? I forget everything after Spider-Man again.
Well, I mean, honestly, I didn't even know this movie came out technically on a Tuesday, but the first Transformers film came out on a Tuesday, which I still like that first Transformer movie, so I'm not gonna take jabs at that. But the Tuesday opening list is very kind of interesting because we're all familiar with movies coming out on Wednesdays. That's usually the holiday release to get ahead of it. But Tuesday, it's like, what movies are you seeing coming out on a Tuesday? You got like random things like Kate and Leopold, Juno, movies you've never heard of, raking in like $700,000, and a ton of fandom events. So, you know, those trailers you see at the beginning of all of your films where it's like, oh, do you want to watch this recorded like a musical theater number inside of a movie theater in your local town? It's a local fandom event. Those are bringing in about like $300,000. So the Tuesday list is pretty funny. So when you see the headlines of Spider-Man Far From Home number one Tuesday opening, wasn't a whole lot of competition there. It's only second to the Amazing Spider-Man, the man, I already forgot the kid that played Spider-Man in those.
No, not Tobey Maguire. That was the first one.
Yeah,
Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield, yeah, that's right. So second only to Andrew Garfield. So, but you were saying it's also it was also somewhere on Wednesday too, right?
Yeah, so it's the number one Marvel movie on a Wednesday.
Gotcha.
Most of them come out on Thursdays, honestly, rather than Wednesdays or Tuesdays. And with the 4th of July being a rotating holiday, you never know what day you're going to get with it. I don't think anything's come out on a Wednesday for them yet. I mean, Ant-Man and the Wasp maybe last year, but I mean, that probably did it the week before. So this is the number one Wednesday for Marvel. So, I mean, that's got 2 days in a row. Good legs. And this is the number 2 4th of July movie ever, right behind like another Transformers movie.
Transformers always coming in. Yeah, July, so for a long time, that was like the box office month for the summer. That's where you put your biggest heavy hitters that your studio could possibly produce. But now July just kind of seems like another summer holiday. Just, you know, I saw that Hobbs and Shaw trailer
the new
in front of my theater, and that's one's coming out soon. So that's just going to be another. I don't think that's July though.
August 2nd. I looked at it this time, and then also. What was it? The new Jumanji. You mentioned Jumanji, the new Jumanji movie.
Jumanji? What's Jumanji?
Yeah, that one actually looked funny too. I was like, that's a good Sony movie coming up. And we don't say a lot of good things about Sony here on the show, but sounds like we're gonna say some good things about Marvel's Sony thing here with Spider-Man. So spoilers, Mike, can you do my alarm for me?
Wah, wah, wah.
He's gonna do a European ambulance. Wee woo, wee woo. It's the other way. So we're in the spoilers. Here we are. Guess what? Mysterio's a bad guy. Who would have thought that? I got
to put this out there. I don't know if I'm like just like a daft person, but I was kind of believing that Mysterio could possibly be the good guy before I stepped foot into the theater, because we saw in the trailers that he was kind of being pivoted as a good guy. And, you know, Jake Gyllenhaal was playing him. Jake Gyllenhaal kind of has like a very friendly face. You know, Marvel's been taking these different angles for all of these different characters. So I wasn't surprised that they could possibly try to turn Mysterio into a good person. And the fools that we were, and everybody else was out there, we totally fell for the bait that there was going to be all of these multiverses. So I was like, okay, well, this can totally explain possibly a good Mysterio. So when I'm watching the movie, this like kind of like first act and maybe part of the second act, me and my wife were both just like, what is going on here? Like, the way Jake Gyllenhaal is like playing Mysterio just seems so weird, to the point where like we were kind of not digging the movie for this kind of first portion of the film. We were like, why is he being like so nice? It seems like his character has like no sort of like detail to it. He just seems like on the surface like so nice. Like, it seemed like we had already had like a previous Mysterio movie somewhere out there. I was like, where's all the development for this character? What planet did he come from? Why did it like why did it get destroyed? Like, why are they pushing this relationship so quickly? Like, why are all of a sudden like Peter and Mysterio just best friends already? Seems like there'd be like some sort of tension between there. And then when they're in that bar scene and he hands over the glasses, I was just like, okay, I think something's about to happen here. I better see like a side eye from Jake Gyllenhaal here when Peter leaves this bar, or else I think this movie's officially lost me. I was going through these thoughts in my head, Chris, during this film. I was like, is this it? Is after Endgame done? Have we just dropped the quality of all of these Marvel movies all of a sudden? Are we just trying to take it down easy street and we don't have to develop our characters anymore? And then, bam, that turn right there, which I was hoping would come. It's not like it was totally unexpected, because Mysterio is a bad guy historically through all of the comic books, and his number one superpower is basically deception at its very core. So when it finally happened, I was just like, oh, thank God. Thank God, this is what this movie needs right now, because so much of the first act was just really bugging me. I was like, why do we need another worldwide threat? Like, why does the planet always have to be in peril? Like, why can't it just be like a neighborhood level crime that Peter's dealing with? Like, there's no way that this molten man could destroy an entire planet. Like, nothing was making sense to me, and I was getting very frustrated. So that's all to say, when this turn finally happened, I was very excited, Chris.
Very much so. And just to point out, I've seen this movie twice, okay? So I've gone back and watched it with that revelation. Also, the second biggest revelation of the movie, Nick Fury and Maria Hill are the Skrulls the whole time. So literally nothing in this movie is as it seems from the get-go. The first people we meet, Maria Hill, Nick Fury, Jake Gyllenhaal, all three of them fakes throughout the whole movie, which is really interesting. And when you go back and rewatch it, you see Maria and Nick bicker like a married couple, and they've never done that before. And Nick Fury also falling for this Quentin Beck person, that would never have happened either. So that was really, like, you start to like, oh, he's doing all this because he's not really him. And Ben Mendelsohn as Talos, I love the way he talks and like intonates every word. So that was a really fun reveal. But there are those people, I went back and confirmed this. So Quentin Beck's, that's not his real name, whatever his real name is based on the barf technology. He built the barf technology in Civil War. And the guy who built the drones is actually in Iron Man 1. That was not a fake out. So the guy who was like, Tony Stark built this in a cave, that is Ralphie from A Christmas Story.
Yeah, I started seeing that. So I know that they did that flashback where he was saying he built this with a box of scraps and like a cave. So I could believe that they brought him back, but I'm going to go and make a guess here that Jake Gyllenhaal was not actually in the shadows on the stage for the barf scene.
No, that's the one retrospect they added in, but the other one was real.
Sense. I mean, how would you not spot Jake Gyllenhaal in that film? Like, people go over every frame of these Marvel movies. There's no way Jake Gyllenhaal could have like made it by,
Yeah, exactly. And I also did not know this guy who played Ralphie as a producer on Iron Man 1. That's why he had that role in the movie.
Ooh, I hope he's getting some of that back end money.
Well, he's getting new movie money now. He's probably one of my. I've got two complaints about this movie, Mike. Before I forget, he is one of them, because every time it's like, nah, the drone fell off, it's fine, and the guy's like, dude, that's evidence. And then later on, he's like, the drones are breaking formation. He's like, it's probably a flock of birds. Like, that guy could give two shits about getting caught or like anything going wrong in this movie.
I guess he's just really bad at his job.
he was not into it at all, and I was like, why? Like this, like. Every time Beck found out it was Spider-Man doing it, it was because that guy was just like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. So I thought that was kind of weird. And then the other thing is the Peter tingle. They don't explain why it doesn't work at the top of the movie. It just all it does is May throws a banana at him, and he doesn't catch it. And she's like, I thought you could dodge bullets. He's like, yeah, I need this trip. And that's really the only explanation for why Spider Sense doesn't work until the end.
Yeah, and we haven't really had any specific moments before where Peter has been actively using his spider sense, right? I mean, yeah, he's like, I can believe just superheroes in general can just kind of like dodge bullets. So I've never really known, is his ability to dodge stuff just his quick reflexes of just being a hero, or is he I almost thought in this film he was finally developing the spider sense.
No,
like he had never had it.
No, he has that in I guess Civil War and not Far From Homecoming. Because he has there's those scenes where his reflexive eyes get bigger, whenever, and then time slows down, and he dodged some stuff. I think most like the Vulture and some stuff in Civil War. So he has had it. They're they're not beating you over the head with it like they did in the previous trilogy movies.
Yeah, I guess you just assume that the loss of Tony and just having an alien come to Earth and being snapped away and coming back was enough to like remove his powers. But yeah, I guess there is no specific line that really telling you why he doesn't have it.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end, he just does.
But Peter Tingle is a hilarious line. That had my crowd like just going crazy. And every time they brought it back up, like when Happy was just like, "Oh yeah, like you're Peter Tingle."
Yeah, the ambiguity of Happy dating Aunt May was very entertaining.
Yeah,
about the whole a byline up until the end moments, and like, "Are you dating them?" And one's like, "Yeah," one's like, "No." So I think I really got a really good European vacation vibe out of this, especially whenever first off, when they land in what is it, Venice, and like their hotel's like, oh, it's under renovation for improvements. The teachers were hilarious as well.
Oh yeah, all the characters in general in this film are really, really great. Like you love to see like Ned and hanging out with that girlfriend and him like slowly becoming like a man over this trip, or I guess very quickly becoming a man over this trip. And Martin Starr, who played the teacher with the glasses, and it took me a while to realize that we all had this theory that J.B. Smoove could possibly be J. Jonah Jameson, and then he was on the screen for like 15 minutes, and I was just like, oh yeah, we thought he was going to be J. Jonah, didn't we? And then I kept trying to catch the teacher's name, like, oh, is his name like Jonah or something like that? And it wasn't. I was like, okay, I guess just J.B. Smoove. He's just a goofy teacher.
Yeah, I think his name was like Julius or something like that. But he was a teacher who did not want to be in Europe whatsoever.
I just kept saying everything was witches.
As a man of science, witchcraft. And then there was also whenever they went to the Alps, I really enjoyed the drone strike on the bus. Which was really fun. Peter dealing with Edith, even dead, I'm the hero.
So if I had to kind of like nitpick about this film, since you put it in yours, I think my two nitpicks would kind of really focus around the drone technology. So I totally get why Stark would give access and control to Peter over these classes. He's totally earned it. They were basically like father-son mentorship type of relationship. So there's nothing wrong there. But like, why can't like Peter just figure out how to interface with like a computer for like once? You know, he's like a really smart guy. He already kind of had his fumble in Homecoming when he accidentally put the suit on like lethal death mode or whatever, and he didn't want to kill those guys working for the Vulture, and the eyes turned red. And it was a funny scene, but I kind of just figured he maybe would be a little bit more careful with these systems now. So when like there was like a missile literally like coming for the bus, like I thought it would be more realistic for him to honestly just shout out of nowhere in the middle of the bus just the word no, and then people would just look at him and think, oh, Peter's being really weird just shouting random words on the bus, because something as simple as just saying no will stop your classmates from dying. You don't need to tell people to look off the bus for mountain goats and then jump out the window and shoot the drone.
But that made a good scene, though.
Yeah, it
looked cool.
Did make a cool scene, and it was very, very necessary to introduce these drones, because these drones are very pivotal to how Mysterio works. So maybe there could just been a cleaner way to do it. And then also at the very end, it's like I understand that Mysterio needed the right verbiage for his final plan to go off, but like, Peter, why did you say execute them all to all of these killer drones?
Because they set up that verbiage that your points are actually related, because they set up that verbiage in the glasses on the thing. It's like, do you want to execute that? And he was like, yes. So like the verbiage she used was related later. They're tied together. I see your point, but they're also tied together.
Yeah, but like I said, it's a nitpick. So like it doesn't affect overall in the whole movie. But like if I had to like kind of dive in somewhere, it's just like, Peter, you're a very smart kid. Figure out how to interface with this technology already, because it's already kind of screwed you twice in a very big way.
And if Edith was able to delete pictures off a phone, couldn't like they do the same thing with this footage or whatever?
You would think so. And also, not to like jump all the way to like the post-credit scene, but like if Mysterio wanted to cobble together like a fake video to like out Spider-Man, he didn't really need Spider-Man literally saying execute them all. Like, you know, it wouldn't be that hard, especially in this kind of climate that they said in the movie about you can't trust anything, everything's fake, people will believe anything from anybody. Like, Jake Gyllenhaal didn't actually need those words coming out of Peter's mouth to make the video damning. So I was like, there's a lot of weird kind of stuff going on here.
And they also did the angle where they don't show Spider-Man's face with Jake Gyllenhaal, and then they just flash a picture of his school photo, which I'm like, that's not really you can't draw that connection.
Yeah, I mean, did his GoPro camera, like, on that bridge, did he just not tilt it up high enough, or what exactly was going on?
Do you think Mysterio's dead?
You know, okay, this is good. You saw the movie twice, so I really need to know this. So when he was laying down on the ground, being a hologram, right?
Yep.
We hear a gunshot, and I thought that gunshot was like from a sniper. I thought that was like Maria Hill, like from like a building away, like shooting him. But then Spider-Man takes the gun out of his hand, and then what happens to him? Like, was he already shot by the drone? And
I think he got shot by the drone and then pulled this illusion thing. But when Peter's exact words are, "Is this real?" and Edith said, "All holograms are currently down." He didn't say, "Is he dead?"
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, and this would be a good thing if he's not dead, because everyone always complains, hey, you finally get a good villain and you kill him off. I really liked Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio.
Yeah.
If we really want to dive into this type of character. Everything was very believable around him, because that was a big question, right? How are we going to have Mysterio's powers be believable? I mean, you could put him in the realm of like Doctor Strange or something, but then you're going to have to like tell all of this storytelling of how does he connect to these wizards, and how do you not put Doctor Strange or Wong in the movie when he's using these magical powers? Like, you're going to have that crossover somewhere. So when it comes, the way that they develop this drone technology is like, yes, this is totally working. Like this hologram technology we've seen work plenty of times, and it looks great. You know, they introduced the drones early on in the movie. It's not surprising that these drones would even be a thing, because Iron Man's built like fully autonomous suits that run around. Yeah. So I think what really sold it more than anything else is we had that really awesome scene and really clever scene when they were all in the kind of like that abandoned theater when they were doing all the choreography, because like, yes, you would actually need to do that.
They are rehearsing, and to them it's all a show. Make the show believable. It's a play. And so much so that after they get the glasses, I really like that scene where Gyllenhaal goes from fatherly figure with the glasses, and then he's like, and it's that easy, and he like does the toast and like runs you through everything. I'm like, he's so charismatic, and you're like, all these people have been burnt by Tony Stark. They're not really from another universe. And you're like, oh damn, the curtain's been pulled back. We now see how the magician's doing his tricks, and his transformation was fabulous in those moments throughout the whole thing. And then he was also, again, he was very smart. He was the smartest man in the room, sometimes he said. And he was like...
never apologize for being the smartest man in the room.
And he used that to get to where he did.
Yeah, and I really like the motion capture suit that he wears, because it just kind of pulls more into like this realism of how you're really selling the Mysterio. Like, he kind of like had a half helmet on anyway, with like the heads up display and like the microphone, and he didn't try to look cool, because he knew he didn't need to look cool at all, because he was going to have a hologram on him the whole time. And
he had the lady steaming the cape. So
yeah, he also had the real suit too, which was great. So I just loved how this was all very much thought out, because I hate it when movies are just like, oh, there's like gods and Thors out there, and there's all of this magical shit happening, so we don't need to go to this length to explain all this stuff. The audience will just give us their money and they won't care. So I loved that they actually cared. And then when we actually got to the Mysterio mind trippy stuff, I was like, this is like ripping pages out of a comic book and putting them right on screen. I was like, this is exactly how Mysterio operates. They just nailed it to a T. Like, all of these trippy visuals, Spider-Man like falling through stuff. They did some really cool match cuts in those scenes where like Mysterio's head would turn into like a fishbowl or like a snow globe or something like that, and Peter would be stuck in it. And it also helps that we had just played the Spider-Man game like a year ago, when we actually had to interact with these types of scenes with that wasn't Mysterio, that was like Poison from
the Scorpion.
Kind of a similar vibe.
It's like, well, I'm like, have you ever played the Batman Arkham games?
No, I haven't.
But the Scarecrow does the exact same things to Batman with those
cool.
poison. And like, you have, like, you know, he's getting punched with the fist. Everything real is hidden from him. So, like, when he goes to punch Quentin, it's actually like a column of concrete. And he webs something and pulls down the crane into the illusion. Like, it's awesome. And then it's only compounded that much more whenever he's in the hallway fighting the quote unquote invisible drones in the projection as well in the hallway, using only his Peter tingle.
Yeah, and also it was great that those drones were weaponized, because you try to be like, okay, well, if these elementals aren't real, well, how are they causing damage? And then you realize, oh yeah, because the drones have like they have like tasers on them and stuff, so
Flames,
this is all working. The only thing that that you kind of have to stretch and just believe that they did it is it seemed very impromptu for Jake Gyllenhaal to have to confront Spider-Man in that big empty Berlin warehouse, right? Because he didn't know that that's what was going to happen. They didn't know this whole plan was going to fall apart and he was going to find that hologram. So Mysterio puts on a very elaborate illusion for Spider-Man in this warehouse, and it's just like, I really don't think he had time to be able to finesse that illusion so much. So I guess maybe he kind of has a little bit of like freestyle ability too. Like, you know, if his team's just like firing on all cylinders and they kind of have a goal, maybe they can just kind of like freestyle some of these events and they don't have to be totally choreographed.
He could have used that before on Nick Fury and Maria Hill. If they were the Talos versions, and he's like, hey, we're in an office building, and then next thing you know, it's really not. It's an abandoned kind of thing.
But this is kind of some of the great thing that Marvel has done in the past. Like, if the execution is just so fun and so entertaining, and all the actors are just really, really giving their all to the role, you can kind of look past kind of that bigger question of just like, well, I don't think he would have had enough time to prepare this, but it's just like, who cares? It's really cool. Like, it was awesome. It's
almost, I think it's trippier than the Doctor Strange visuals at this point.
Oh yeah,
and those are almost 3 years old now, believe it or not. I gotta, while we're talking about the actors giving all, I gotta give props. I always like to see Peter and Ned hanging out together, but with Ned and his newfound girlfriend who was on the trip.
Oh yeah, but then they broke up, man.
But they broke up at the end. That's a journey.
Love is fleeting. Sometimes adults just grow apart.
Yep. I actually enjoyed Mary Jane, MJ, more in this movie than the previous one as well. Yeah. I think she had more to do, more lines, and she sold that quirky personality a little better rather than being the creepy one on the side.
Yeah.
So I really dig that, and that kind of quote unquote happy ending there for Peter and Mary Jane. Peter also came back on the same flight they did, and even though he was supposed to stay in Berlin, by the way, I just want to point that out. But yeah, that and the teachers. And I tell you, my favorite actor in this, J.K. Simmons, the one and only.
We're going to let that out of the bag. That was the last thing I was expecting. I just didn't think they could get him back, because it's kind of this weird thing. It's like, well, yeah, we have recast like Chris Evans, from the Human Torch, into a different character. But like, this is him reprising his role. So it's kind of this weird thing of like, he's just going to perpetually be J. Jonah Jameson. But I'm totally fine with it, because how can you do any better? He's like the perfect cast.
I have never heard more reactions in a theater in my life until the moment, like, the dailybugle.net. I'm like, okay, great, I understand this. And then lo and behold, it's again, looks different, and because he doesn't have the flat top hair, he's got the thing, but it is just J.K. Simmons right there, like being J. Jonah Jameson yet again. Yeah. And you're like, I can't wait to see this version of him. I know it's not going to change a whole lot, but like, he's also not the stogie smoking, running the old newspaper, make the headline saying he's running a conspiracy website.
Yeah, I love this angle that they're taking. It's very reminiscent of the J. Jonah Jameson podcast from the Spider-Man video game.
Yep.
So now it seems like he's taken definitely the Alex Jones InfoWars approach. So he's just going to be like this crazy conspiracy dude that's just going to be throwing all this stuff out there. So I'm really curious how much he's going to factor in. J. Jonah was never really a pivotal part of the Spider-Man movies. He was just kind of always there, just kind of being an accessory to the plot. And I can't imagine he's going to have too much of an influence on where the story goes directly. He's just out there reporting the conspiracies that come across his desk. So he just might be a fun foil every once in a while to pop up. Well, even in the comic books, he never really takes a front seat in the story unless like his son gets involved or something like that.
Well, I mean, it all depends. I mean, there are more where he is a big point, simply because he's consistently putting the public against him, and it's not really anything, like he's not out there like kidnapping Peter Parker's girlfriends and threatening his family kind of thing. He's just like being a nuisance on the whole. But with the new website, we live in a world of fake news and all that other stuff, and there's no Tony Stark out there to hijack those screens across the world and stop these from perpetuating. I'm interested to kind of see how that goes. It was just such of all the things I didn't expect. Even in the end credit scene with Nick Fury on a spaceship full of Skrulls.
Sword. That's gotta be Sword.
It's gotta be Sword at this point.
Which is an acronym I don't remember.
Or it could be, we talked about the newest version of the Ultimates being in space and guarding, the space as a whole with Captain Marvel, Black Panther. We talked about possibly becoming a movie. This could kick off that version of it.
Yeah, it's basically going to be the Justice League Watchtower, it seems like. It's just going to be the command post for space threats. And it seems like they've logically finally built up to that point. Like, if you were to introduce, like, a space station in the first Avengers, I would have been like, oh, okay, this doesn't seem feasible. Like, if you're just getting around to flying helicarriers, I can't quite see that leap to space quite yet. But since we've had Captain Marvel in the MCU now, we've seen all of these space threats, now it seems totally plausible that kind of the world would kind of group together and they would just throw a ton of money into orbit.
Well, this is not that. This is not that at all. Only people on the ship were Skrulls, so I think this is a Captain Marvel-led base, like, because she's been out there 20 years or plus.
Oh, so you think maybe she hired Nick Fury herself?
She brought Nick Fury to space with her. Be like, look, let's go out here. I think something bigger's going on.
Bitch, you've been to space, which is even funnier to think about now, knowing that Talos said that. Yeah. So he's just like, I wonder what Nick Fury would say right now. He'd probably call him a bitch right now. So I'm going to call him a bitch.
Exactly. And so I mean, with that being said, those were all Skrulls up there, and we always thought the Skrull invasion could be a villainous invasion, but it looks like it might, a friendly Skrull invasion. I don't know. They keep using that. I didn't see that coming. And it's still not as big a surprise as J.K. Simmons returning, but like, what about all the possibilities of Phase 3 we talked about Phase 4 being cosmic based are now coming to fruition at the end of all these the past couple of years.
And this seems like a really good compromise in the middle, because if you go too far into space, you're removing yourself from Earth, which is taking your audience out of the film. We don't have our way to really empathize in there anymore with the threat of the Earth. So if you're kind of partially in space, but really you could look out the window and still see Earth, I think you still have that earthbound connection. But I don't always like to pull in like Batman vs Superman and Justice League into these conversations, because you're just like, oh, okay, Mike, what are you doing here? You're stretching here. This movie did the exact right way to show how a planet mourns for a hero when they sacrifice themselves and die. It totally made sense that you would see Iron Man graffiti all around the Earth. Everybody would love Iron Man, wondering who's going to take up his mantle, because he didn't just like save the planet, he saved like half of existence, and he was a very upfront superhero. He was on. Everybody knew his identity. He was on. He was in front of cameras all the time. He had that type of personality to where the world, love him or hate him, would know him. So when he would sacrifice himself and die, and he would be long gone, there would be that affection and people would want to know what happened to him. And that's just the polar opposite of what happened in the Justice League. Like, no one cared about Superman. No one really knew who he was. And he wasn't honestly Superman for very long when he died. So I loved how they really nailed that with Iron Man. And it's fun to see how it can really work. And I love the visuals that Mysterio did when he had like the Captain America and like the statue that fell over, and then the zombie Iron Man, which felt very much like Marvel Zombies. Like, I never thought I'd get kind of like that
close to it,
that Easter egg in a movie. So I was like, oh man, those visuals are so cool. So I loved how they really nailed that. And just like tying up all these little loose ends, like what happens like when these people come back into the existence, like the marching band like blipping back into reality, and then just little lines like Aunt May talking about displaced people, like when they come back, like people living in their apartment, because like, yeah, all that makes total sense. There would be this weird minutia that would happen on the Earth, and you don't need to go into every detail, but just one movie bringing up these little facts just here and there is just enough to go like, okay, they're not trying to skirt over this weird storytelling problem that they have to get around. They're gonna face it full frontal. And with some of the kids, I mean, it is coincidental and very favorable to the story that all of our main characters got dusted, and then came back. And it's not like Flash Thompson ended up being 5 years older. But it was funny that one kid was
Brad,
5 years older,
yeah.
and he was hanging around Brad, which I was looking up some Easter eggs. I guess Brad was actually a real character. In the comic books, I don't think he turned into a supervillain or anything, but I think he was like a jock love interest of Mary Jane at some point in the anthology of Spider-Man. So that actually was based on a real person. So that was hilarious, seeing that some people did grow up and they moved on. That one kid said, that opening class announcement, that was so funny, and the "I will always love you" with the Comic Sans. He's just like, yeah, my younger brother's now older than me. That's messed up, man.
That's
so
math.
Funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
it's good, and they got the two kids with the iMovie making the tribute video for everybody. Which I guess in this respect, it didn't make me think. We know Captain America lived, but everybody else thought he died in that battle. Mm-hmm. The world would think Captain America is dead, since
that's true.
They use the time travel later. So, that was really fun. I really liked the kid. I really felt like that awkwardness Peter did when he was like, "I got this plan. I like this girl, and nothing's going right." And I'm like, I can relate to that guy. I remember being young and stupid. So. I think it was good. I had a really good time with this movie, Mike, and I think I don't know what else I can say other than repeating the whole thing. But I mean, it's got to be. It's hard to rank Spider-Man movies. There's some that are really good. There's some that are really bad. But I think I really think this is a good follow-up to the first one and Endgame, and I look forward to seeing Spider-Man as soon as possible again.
It's going to be really entertaining to see where they go. I mean, obviously, the one thing that we haven't brought up yet is now his identity is really out there in the open, which is something that historically happened in the comic books Civil War. So they're obviously going to take it a different direction. How many people are going to believe this? Is he going to go back to school and just tell everybody that Mysterio was lying? But then at the same time, why would Mysterio just lie about a random teenager from Queens? So
who was known to be on vacation at those same places? Yeah.
Is he going to have to drop out of school? Is he going to move into the Avengers compound because there's nowhere else safe for him to go? The relationship with Mary Jane's probably going to get a little dicey after that. She's still just like a normal kid. And this is something they've really never got around to in all of the other Spider-Man movies we've had. We've had his identity revealed to individual people over time, but this is the first time the whole world has ever gotten his identity. So you really don't know what they're going to do here. In comic books, this kind of stuff gets retconned all the time, or, sometimes it's not that big of a deal. But since we really connect with these humans on a screen in an emotional way, I really got to know where this is going to go. You would think maybe the next Spider-Man movie, since it's kind of like school themed, maybe it's going to be like called Spider-Man Graduation. Maybe he's finally going to move on to college, and then maybe he's just going to be naive and think, oh, he can reinvent himself when he goes off to school and nobody will know who he is. I don't really know. There's so many questions. What happens to Spidey going forward?
Who is the villain in the next one, Mike? That's the real question here. Who have we not done anything with? And if it picks up from here and he's a known, maybe they turn him into a wanted person. I don't know. I mean, he technically would be an Avenger, so they would stick up for him, but since we don't know where the Avengers are now, he could be maybe Kraven is the villain. They're doing a Manhunt style movie.
Yeah, I could see something like that. I'm happy that Spidey is finally back in the city for real. This is the first time they've specifically put him around skyscrapers in New York. It felt very much like the Spider-Man game, which I was very happy to see him swinging around. I was like, I swung right by that in the video game. And also, make sure you update your Spider-Man games because they put those two Far From Home suits in the game. I swung around with them the other day. Very fun. So I hope the next movie they put him in the city. I want to see Spider-Man proper swinging around New York, trying to be the local neighborhood Spider-Man. He's going to have that menace stink to him a little bit, so I'd imagine he's going to save some people. They're going to be very unhappy. They're not going to want his help, but he's going to do it anyway because that's what Spider-Man does. And they treaded on that a little bit in some previous Spider-Man movies.
Is the next one the Clone Saga or a Miles movie where a second Spider-Man shows up while Peter's still around and they start to believe it's not him?
Yeah, I mean, do you try to figure out how quickly they're going to ramp up these Spider-Man stories? It seems like there's still a whole lot they can tell before they start doing things, like clones or
Yeah.
bringing in other Spider-Man. They still haven't even introduced Norman Osborn yet, which I think is going to be a really big pivotal portion of the third film, because we still don't know what's happening to that Avengers Tower yet.
It's very green. It's got a hole in it.
Yeah, there's a chance if Norman Osborn ends up being more of a spanning villain, maybe he's introduced first in a different film, and then he finally gets around to Spider-Man. Maybe Spider-Man doesn't think Norman is a bad guy off the bat. Maybe Norman hires him or something like, hey, I want a hero that's also smart working for my company. I want you here, and then he keeps tabs on him. I would love to see Norman come in. We obviously still have the Vulture in play. We still have Scorpion in play. Mysterio could still be around. So that's half of the Sinister Six right there. If you throw in Norman, you only need to add 2 more people to this equation.
Well, what if a Sinister Six movie is maybe an Avengers film?
Yeah, that could be it.
It's not earth shattering. Earth's not ending, but like you put those 6 people together, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, or it could be like a Young Avengers movie. I don't know historically who has led the Young Avengers, but if you think about it, if Spider-Man kind of is taking the mantle a little bit from Tony, maybe he's not quite mature enough to handle an adult squad of adults, but maybe he could handle like a younger squad of kids. Maybe he'll end up like running like a pseudo Young Avengers. Maybe it's not official, but maybe he gets a ragtag group of heroes together to help him save New York, because a New York level threat would be enough for him to maybe get a couple people in, but it's hard to imagine somebody like Spider-Man trying to save the entire existence of a universe,
Yeah, exactly. He just kind of hung out for a little bit the last 2 movies and kind of got his butt kicked several times. So his score's not that good right now, to say the least. But no, I think to me, I think I've said about all I can, but I again recommend it wholeheartedly. And really, I think the hardest thing's going to be waiting till May of next year for the next Marvel movie.
Oh yeah, we're in a dry spell now for sure. I guess I would be surprised if you're still listening to this podcast and you haven't seen this movie, but I saw some people out there online asking if they needed to see Endgame before they see Spider-Man, and to those people I go, what are you doing with your life? You got to go see these. You got to go see these movies. These are everything to me. So I think you absolutely have to see Endgame before this movie just to really get everything out of the film. Obviously, it's not like it would be impossible to follow the story. You could infer what happened, but yeah, you got to see Endgame before you see this one.
Yeah. Come on, people. This throws back to even Iron Man 1. Like, you have to watch all of these now, because there's a scene in Iron Man 1 where Tony Stark built this in a cave, and you got to watch that scene now to see Ralphie being yelled at by Obadiah Stane.
Yep.
But, Mike, this is middle of the week. We actually still have a couple of days till we do our news episode. But people want to know what you're up to, because we are prepping so hard for San Diego Comic-Con. Where can people find you at?
That's right. You can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram and Twitter, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, so you're out there grilling and chilling, where can they find you?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter, Valdan, Valdan. You can also find me on Instagram. I got my latest Spider-Man Far From Home pop vinyl in the mail. It's him in a shield suit with his glasses flipped up. It's pretty cute looking here.
No, not the Night Monkey suit?
The Night Monkey. Oh, I forgot the Night Monkey. And you can also head over to Comic UI. People want to know about our regular news program that we do every week, or any other the other movie reviews we do all the time. Where can people find us at, Mike?
Well, the flagship podcast of Superhero Slate, the news episodes, you can find those and everything else we do at superheroslate.com. You can get all of our awesome show notes there too. When we're talking about the news, there's so much to catch up on. There, all of this information trickles out every week, and we compile it all for you. So even if you don't listen to the show, you can also just check out our show notes to see everything that you might have missed. It's almost like your crib sheet. It's like your cheat sheet for the news. So you can keep up with everything, and you can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. And you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and you can get that sweet new summer merch design of Iron Man's Infinity Gauntlet glove holding a cheeseburger at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. What did you think of Spider-Man Far From Home? Did you get a chance to see it on Tuesday night at midnight like Chris? Did you have to wait like a pedestrian like me and see it 2 days later? We want to know what you thought about this film and what you think about the show in general. So reach out to us. You can email us. You can drop us a line on Twitter or Instagram, or reach out to us directly on Twitter at our handles. We love our super fans also. If you want to be a super fan of this illustrious podcast, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week. Stay subscribed. The news is coming in just a couple days.
That's right. We will see you there. And if you have any recommendations for Comic-Con, 2 episodes will be there, Mike. Send it our way. I'd like to know if anyone's ever been there. And we'll catch you then.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.
And I can play the desk drums.
Oh, there you go. We got a duet going here.